Hi everyone and welcome to the tutorial. Today I'm going to be demonstrating how to work the 3-needle join. If you've ever worked the 3-needle bind off before, you'll be very familiar with what I'm about to show you. The principle behind the 3-needle join is exactly the same as that for the 3-needle bind off. It's just that rather than completely binding off our stitches, we're going to be joining them together, and in the process we'll need to halve our number of stitches. This technique has a range of applications. I'm using it today to close off the top of this little toy bear leg, and in a moment I'll also show you how the technique can be used to knit something like this into another piece of knitting, which is very cool. So to work this technique, you'll need to have your stitches halved, so 1/2 of your stitches on one needle and 1/2 on the other. If you're using a circular needle and the magic loop method of working in the round, you'll already have your needle set up like this. But if you're using DPNs, you'll just need to make sure that you do divide your stitches like this. You want to have an equal number of stitches on both needles, and then you're going to hold the 2 needles that are holding this entirety of your stitches together in your left hand with the needle tips pointing towards the right. You'll then need a 3rd separate needle. That's why it's called the 3-needle join. You need a 3rd needle for it, and this needle is going to be used to work these stitches on your left. So this technique is super easy. To start, I'm going to insert my 3rd needle into the first stitch on the frontmost needle knitwise, so as if I'm going to knit it. See that again? Just insert into that needle as if you're going to knit it normally. But then we're going to come around and also insert our 3rd needle knitwise into the stitch on the back needle. And I forgot to mention that the working yarn is attached to that back stitch at the moment. Alright, so now this 3rd needle is going through both of those stitches knitwise. We're then going to wrap our yarn around that 3rd needle as if to knit, and then we're going to draw this loop through both of these stitches. So usually easiest to come through the one on the back needle first, and then the one on the front needle. And now we're going to slip both of those stitches from their respective needles. So it's 1 stitch from both the front and back needle that has been worked and that needs to be slid off. And we just keep repeating that. So we leave this stitch on the needle, on this 3rd needle, and then insert knitwise into the next stitch on the front needle, and then also knitwise through the first stitch on the back needle. Wrap the working yarn around that 3rd needle as if to knit, and then draw the loop through both of those stitches, and then slide each of the work stitches from their respective needles. Usually with the 3-needle bind off, we would now pass this stitch over this stitch, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to leave these stitches and add more to that collection. So once again, insert the 3rd needle knitwise through the first needle on the front needle, first stitch on the front needle, sorry, and first stitch on the back needle. Wrap the working yarn around the 3rd needle as if to knit, and then draw your loop through both stitches and then slip them off the needle. And we're just going to continue doing that until all of these stitches have been worked. I'll just do one more, and then I'll show you how we used to have an opening between these stitches, but now we have actually joined them together. We've completely closed off the top of that shape, and we do end up with a row of purl bumps on this wrong side of the shape. That is something to keep in mind. For my particular project, that's going to be hidden, so I don't mind it being there, but because you're knitting, you're going to have knit bumps that you will always get on the wrong side of your work, also on the wrong side of your work here. So I'll just quickly finish that off, and you can do this with any number of stitches. I'm just doing it over a small number because this is a very small shape, but you can use it for any number of stitches that you need. Just has to be practical that you will want to still have live stitches on the needle once this technique has been applied. All right, last ones. And there we go. We've finished the 3 needle join for this particular shape. So I could then cut my working yarn, and I'm going to leave this on hold so that I can now show you how we could join this shape into another piece of knitting. So that's where this technique is most applicable and why you want to still have these live stitches on the needle. Okay, here's another piece of knitting. This is the base of my little teddy bear's body, and I now want to come back to that shape that I made before, the little leg, and I'm now going to join this into my work, this other piece of knitting that I'm making. So what we're going to do is use the 3 needle join again. Now you remember when we did it the first time that we ended up halving our stitches. We'll do the same thing again so that we're not changing the net number of stitches in this body piece. We'll just be getting rid of the stitches that are on this needle. So once again, you need to hold the 2 sets of stitches that you're joining together on parallel needles and hold them in your left hand with the needle tips pointing to the right. And we'll be using the exact same principle as we did before, where we're going to insert our needle into the first stitch on the front needle and the first stitch on the back needle in that order. Wrap our working yarn around. This is now our 3rd needle, so this has live stitches on it, but that doesn't matter. It becomes our 3rd needle by default. Knit those 2 stitches and then slide them off their respective needles. Once again, insert 3rd needle into each stitch on each needle. Draw your loop through those stitches and push them off the needle. And you'll start to see that we're joining this little leg to the body. And as I said, you can use this wherever you can think it would be useful to join 2 separate pieces of knitting together. And the great thing is that I am joining the leg to the body, and then I'm going to continue knitting the body of the bear because this is knit from the bottom up. And so I still have these live stitches on the needle, sorry. So this was joined in, but now I can just continue knitting the body piece as well. So it's a really nice seamless knitting technique. I'll just finish joining these last few stitches together. Just make sure that you don't split any of your stitches along the way, which can happen. Okay, one more. There we go. Now I've got a loose stitch there because I've still got that little tail end of yarn, but if I tug it, that neatens it up, and I can now weave this end in wherever the neatest place is to do that. So there we go, we've joined the leg in. We still have our enough stitches on the needle to continue working the body. We haven't changed the stitch count for this item. We've just joined these stitches into it and then halved the stitches together to join the pieces. That's what it looks like on the other side, and I can now just continue knitting this as normal. So that is how you work the 3 needle join. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to subscribe to the channel, and if you have any questions or comments, do leave them below.